Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy!
That's me, Tiberius! Today, we're going to talk about some very awesome stuff. We have a video about being a thief, another book about Samantha Spinner, and we have a totally awesome guest. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Steve Price! Steven is a board-certified adoption attorney. He helps people adopt children.
I get to be on the Tiberius Show. Tiberius, thanks for the invite.
Well, you are welcome. And today, we're going to start off with the video game of the week, and this is going to be a steal. Grab.
And now it's time for the video game of the week.
Today's video game is Thief Life. This game is made by Gabriel Kung 9. Because it is on Roblox, you are able to play it on PC, Xbox, and even your cell phone. And it is free.
If it's free, it's for me.
Yep, that's right. This is the only game from Gabriel Kung 9, but he's adding stuff to it every single month. Such dedication. So first off, I just see an alley. You have a cell place and an underground tool place. Then as you get near a garbage can, it lights up so that you can look through and steal from it. So I guess you're supposed to steal stuff. So I walked to the gas station and steal cash from the register and crossed in front of a video camera. All of a sudden, the police show up and are on me and put me in jail. Wait, I really have to be in jail while playing a game? But yes, I did have to spend 9 minutes running around the jail. But then I found out how to steal cars and even a helicopter. So then I purchased tools to make it faster to get into safes and into doorways. When my dad was playing with me, he got sent to jail as well. But I stole the helicopter and landed in the yard to break him out of the jail. And guess what? It worked.
As a lawyer in the room, I have to say that stealing is never a good idea, but certainly in the video world, I understand it's more accepted.
Well, I give Thief Life 9 out of 10 stars because I like being able to act like a thief and get lots of loot, but I understand that this is not really in line strong because stealing is not using integrity. It's not even any of those. Not even leadership, not even obeying, well, kind of not obeying, but whatever.
Don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
True. Tiberiuslaw.com.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
Wait, you are not Chuck.
My dad can help when people get hurt. He loves to help people.
If you are ever injured at work or in a car accident, you should call my friend Chuck.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
That website again is cwsmith.com.
Offices, Orlando.
Does it actually have that much W's?
And now it's time for the book of the week, Samantha Spinner and the Spectacular Specs. This book is written by Russell Gittins. Numbers at the back of the book. In fact, Steve, would you like to do the honors?
I would love to do the honors. Welcome to a reading by Steve Price. So, when Samantha Spinner's Uncle Paul disappeared, he left amazing gifts for her sister and brother. Samantha got a rusty old umbrella. Wow, so unfair. She should talk to a lawyer. Well, it seemed unfair until Samantha discussed that the old umbrella holds the plan for a super secret travel. It's the ticket to danger and adventure beyond anyone's wildest dreams.
Thank you for reading time with Steve Price.
You are welcome.
Well, this is an AR book and it's for 6 full points. It's rated for 5th grade and 5th month. This is a great book for kids that love mysteries. So, if you remember from the first book, Samantha figured out the umbrella was a map for a special way to travel all around the world. But now Uncle Paul gave her some purple sunglasses, but he's still missing! Wow. So, after a while, the glasses did have a use though. They could see secret messages that were in plain sight. Samantha was the only one that could see them because she had the sunglasses. There were messages at their house in New York because of the super secret travel, at Cleopatra's Needle, and they were getting so close to finding Uncle Paul. And then, I really think I'm going to mess up the story for you. You need to read this book. I really enjoyed the puzzles and figuring out the code breaking. I like trying to solve the problems and even using Morse code.
Do you really use the Morse code? Oh, that's awesome. Code breaking? I'm in.
Well, I guess I met the spinner and the spectacular specs 10 out of 10 stars because it was really cool that they were riding the mag train at train speed to over 10,000 miles per hour. That goes zoom! My hat would fall off as well. Now it's time for an interview of an interesting person. Today's guest is going to be so much fun. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Steve Price. Steven is a board-certified adoption attorney. We are going to learn all about adoption.
I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here. Thank you for having me here, and I get to be called interesting, and I get an intro like that. I'm here anytime you want me.
So first off, how are you enjoying being on the show?
I am enjoying it very much. This is a e-ticket ride, as we used to say in the old days with
Express
Disney.
ticket.
Yeah, well, e-ticket it's a long story, but I go way back with Disney.
See, we just want to
But some of the older people that watch this, they'll understand what e-ticket ride means.
So, okay, so you work in the area of adoption. I thought of this question. Why do children need to be adopted? Do their parents no longer want them?
That is such a great question. And there are a myriad of reasons, Tiberius, that parents want to place their children. You know, it's interesting. Some people refer to it as parents giving up on their children, but they actually don't. Most of the biological parents that I deal with, as a lawyer, because I am a lawyer and I practice in the legal area of adoption, most of them, it's because they love their child. It's because they can't provide the things that they want their children to have. They can't be a mom and a dad or be two parents at the same time. So actually, while your question is so good because there's a perception that, they just don't want their children. To the contrary, many of the families that I deal with, biological families, that are making this really big decision.
They love their child.
They love their child.
They just don't have the stuff to do.
They don't believe they can provide everything they want their child to have. And I don't mean just financially or physically. I mean emotionally and spiritually, every other way. They want their child
to live the best life that they can.
That's bingo. Very well said. Very well said.
So, can you explain to my listeners exactly what adoption is and how does it work?
So adoption is a legal proceeding, and it involves biological parents, and it involves obviously a child, typically, and that child could be a newborn or up to the age of 18. After the age of 18, if they were adopted, they'd be adopted as an adult. So adoption is a legal proceeding by which a child is received into an adopting family and becomes a part of that family legally. And what do I mean by that? I mean that ultimately a judge will enter an order, final adoption order, saying that this child is now considered
yours.
Born to. You know, it's interesting because you have biological parents and they're on your birth certificate, their names are there. After an adoption, somebody wants to adopt the child. The interesting thing is once the child's adopted, the child, in the eyes of the law, is no longer considered adopted because they're considered born to the parents. They're considered that they are the product of that marriage, and they have every right, title, and benefit as if they were naturally born. So once the adoption happens, the law doesn't look at adopted children and naturally born children.
Yeah.
They're all the same. They're considered naturally born. And so it's a legal process by which that happens, and that's what adoption is.
Nice. So why is adoption important to the world?
one of the reasons that it's important is it gives permanence. And you'll find we have two laws in our state, in Florida, where you and I are. We have the private adoption statute, which is Chapter 63, and then we have the state, Chapter 39, which is the dependency statute, and that's where children are removed for reasons of health or safety, and the parents are given the opportunity to try to reunite with their children by complying with various classes and demands made by the state. If they do that, they're reunited. If they don't, ultimately their rights are terminated. And then the children are available for adoption. But why we have adoption is because children need parents. It is,
True.
the state of Florida believes it's better for children to be raised by parents than to be raised by the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then they'll learn about government way too quickly.
Well, and the other thing is there's also couples that desperately want children. And for whatever reason, they're unable to have children. And so it gives them the opportunity to pour their hearts and their lives and their love into a child. And so adoption is about making families.
Nice. So how long have you been doing this?
I am an adopting parent. So I have 3 boys that were all adopted as babies. And I have been practicing law since 1992, and I've been doing adoption since 1992.
Wow.
So I'm coming up on 30 years.
So how many families have you helped?
It's well over 1,000.
Oh, wow. That was a quick answer. So what made you know that this was the go-to job for you?
Great question, because I'm an adopting parent. And because I've benefited, I've been blessed by adoption.
Because you know how it works.
I know how it works. I've been on both sides of the table, so to speak. I mean, it is a legal proceeding, but I've been there as a parent. I've been there as a lawyer. And so I knew for me that this was an area that I wanted to work on and to work in.
And
because it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, because you get to see parents' prayers answered as they become parents for the first time or the second time or the third time. You get to see this, what is often incredible sacrifice of these biological parents who don't know if they'll see the child again, if they will, or what the relationship will be, but they know this is the right thing to do for their child. So it can be a tremendous act of love for the child. So that's when I knew I wanted to do it. And we're here in Orange County. We've got some great family law judges here. The judges love adoption. I love adoption. I tell people all the time, when it works, and it works the overwhelmingly vast majority of the time, there's nothing better to be a part of. When it breaks down or when there's problems with it, there's nothing worse to be a part of. But that happens rarely.
Yeah. So does it take a lot of formal training to be able to be an adoption attorney?
Well, first you have to be an attorney, and so that takes a legal education.
Which takes about 12 years.
No, actually it doesn't. It's actually 2.5, 3 years postgraduate, or depending if you go part-time, it could be a little longer. Then you have to, once you graduate from law school, you take the bar exam. Florida has its bar exam. You become a member of the bar, and then you are authorized to practice law. Now, you can be involved in adoption without being a lawyer, but in terms of going to court, you would require a lawyer for that.
Yes. So you could be your own lawyer sometimes.
Well, sometimes you could. I think it was Lincoln or somebody that said, a person who lawyers for himself has a fool for a client. But, this is an area that is complicated enough that you would want an attorney, and you would like an attorney that does adoption law.
Mm-hmm. So how is adoption law different from criminal justice or entertainment law?
Well, because it's got its own rules. So adoption is under the family law rules, and there's rules of civil procedure, but family law rules apply. It's unique because it deals with families. It deals with constitutional rights, because in order to have a child available for adoption, rights have to be terminated. Well, a parental right's a fundamental right. It is protected under our Constitution, both at the national level, U.S. Constitution, and at the state level. So entertainment law, contract law don't have those components.
That makes sense.
But at the same time, the law is the law. It is governed by statutes, and so our statute for private adoption is Chapter 63, and the dependency is Chapter 39. So it is different. It's more emotional generally because it involves lives. It involves decisions. It involves voluntary termination or involuntary termination. So it has some really
Because what if
heartwarming and
kids
heart-wrenching
are not
components.
adopted?
Then they would be raised by the state. Or they would be in a situation potentially where they could be neglected or in harm's way, either intentionally or because a parent's just not able to provide. And it's not necessarily their fault that they can't do that. But
It's not their fault, it's their decision.
well, oftentimes, yeah, certainly.
Mm-hmm. So, what type of tasks does an adoption attorney do on a daily basis?
So there are, it's kind of a more detailed question. It's a great question. And an adoption attorney is involved with, well, let me step back. So you have adoptions that can be handled by adoption agencies, and a lot of people are familiar with that. They are kind of a one-stop place to get all of the services of adoption. But basically, it involves working with biological parents and working with adopting parents and making sure that the biological parents understand their rights and responsibilities under the law. It's making sure that the adopting family understands their rights and responsibilities, and making sure that the adopting family is in a position through getting a home study and fulfilling some of the requirements of our law, making sure that have to be done before a child can even be placed in their home, much less adopted. So it involves going to court on a regular basis. There's all kinds of hearings that you have to attend. And like I said, it is adoption law is a component of family law, but it has some very unique characteristics.
Okay. So, how does that help make the world a better place?
I think anytime you can connect children with families, the world's a better place.
Nice. So, what's the coolest part about being an adoption attorney?
The final hearing. I had one today, and to watch the eyes of the parents as the judge makes their dreams come true, and they be their parents, and knowing that this child is now in a place where he or she will be loved and nurtured and cared for. Bingo. And so that's the most rewarding, and to get to watch it year after year, because a lot of the adoptions I do are newborns, but I've done older children. And
have you done 18 plus?
yes, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have. And so it is wonderful to watch, but it's something that not only do I get to watch it at the hearing, Tiberius, I get to watch it for the rest of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
I get cards, from families. The child
Families
has
that
graduated, or the child's going to get married, and so
When the
there's
child's
really there are not
21.
many areas of law where you get to do that.
But then later in life, when they realize that they've been adopted from birth, they kind of don't know what that kind of means to them.
Well, that's interesting. You're raising some good points. I like this. So.
These all, some of these are just by me, by myself.
Well, and it's wonderful, and I like where you're thinking, because the fact of the matter is that's a parenting decision in terms of when is a child told that they're adopted. I personally believe that a child should never be able to be able. No. I believe they should know, because it's part of their story, and I think we disclose the story, because biological parents play a really important part in this, and because most of them do it because of their genuine and sincere love for the child. It's a good part of the story. So I believe, though, that a child should never be able to go back to a calendar date and time. This is when I found out I was adopted. With our boys, we mentioned it, and we would tell the story. We would answer the questions that they asked, and we would do so honestly and fairly. Try not to give too much detail until such
they
time
would know
as.
too much.
Well, it's not that they would know too much. It's about being able to process it. As someone gets older, their ability to
let
process
them process it first,
exactly,
and
be
then they
comfortable with it.
realize.
Yeah.
So, what have you learned about yourself while doing this job?
That I love it. Somebody said, if you love your
sense.
job, you'll never work a day in your life. And I do love my job. And it's rewarding, it's fulfilling, and it's something that I feel very good about as a lawyer being able to do.
Nice. So what's the hardest part? I mean, the hardest part about being an adoption attorney?
Watching an adoption plan fail because
Goes down.
it somehow comes apart. Whether it was because it was contested, and it doesn't happen a lot.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
the interesting thing is that there is a perception out there sometimes that it does happen a lot. And why is that? Well, because the news is going to report things that have that kind of an element. And I'm not criticizing that, but it is, the fact of the matter is, the news is full of negative stories. So those few
Like
adoptions that go wrong,
some fires that
where a
happen.
child's removed from a house or a family or something, for every one of those, there's thousands that go well that we'll never hear about.
Yeah.
But in terms of your specific question, watching an adoption plan
Fail.
unravel is the most difficult part.
Yeah. Unravel is a better way to say it. So I see famous people on TV adopt from other countries. And my dad says that is because adoption is very expensive. So do you have to be rich to be able to adopt?
You don't.
Okay.
Adoption can be very expensive, and that's because of the factors involved. Sometimes the adoption involves helping with living expenses
And it depends
of the biological
on-
parent of the mother. Sometimes it's contested, and so therefore you have litigation where people are arguing legal arguments in court as to one party as to why their rights should not be terminated and the other as to why they should be. And so it can be. It's always a great question to ask.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of if you are a prospective adopting family, if you want to adopt, always ask. That's always a fair question, is how much is it going to cost? Because
great
I've
question.
seen adoptions cost several $1,000s. I've seen
Several.
it cost over $100,000. So
Oh, wow. So why do some people decide to adopt a child?
because they want to be parents.
That makes sense.
And maybe they have no children, maybe they have one and weren't able to have more, and they want a sibling. But it's always about wanting to be parents and wanting to add to their family. Some people are called to do it. They feel like it is an extension of their faith to do that. And
See,
others,
I'm an only child,
okay.
so
Yeah.
I wasn't adopted. So I don't know how it feels to be adopted. Gotta fill me in.
Well, I don't think it feels any different. I think because let me go with my example. My boys do not look at me as their adopting dad. They look at me as dad.
As dad.
Yeah, they know they're adopted, but they don't question my role. They don't question who I am. They don't question my
Who
wife
their
as their mother is.
real
Yeah.
parents are. So does the children get any say on who can adopt them?
An older child does.
Okay.
A child,
like an
yeah.
adult.
Well, not an adult
Well,
because they still are a child.
15.
But yeah, a 15-year-old would have a say.
Yeah.
In they may not. The court may still go against what they want. But the court does value as they get older, as a child
Because they
gets
do
older,
get
13,
a say.
14.
So at least they
Well,
do
they
get
get
a
to have a
say.
voice. Let me put it that way.
That makes sense.
That's the better way is they get to have a voice. The court will ask a teenager their opinion.
That makes sense. So if you could think of one thing that would make your job easier, what would it be?
Well, if everybody would agree.
That would make your
But you
job much
inevitably,
easier.
sometimes you have a conflict, Tiberius, with a biological mother and a biological father. And so if the mother wants this and the father doesn't, that's where some of that litigation.
Fun.
So I would love to have, you would love it if there was no contested proceedings because it's easier for everybody, but it's just a reality.
Nothing's perfect.
Nothing's perfect, even in the law.
Oh, yeah. So what was the first job that you ever had?
First job, I'm born and raised here in Orlando.
Nice.
My parents were both born and raised here in Orlando. We were in the citrus business, so my first jobs, in addition to working in the yard at home, where we worked in the groves in the summer.
Well, basically your first paying job.
I got paid to work in the groves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I was a teenager.
So yeah, this is my first paying job.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. So was there anything you learned from that job that helped you be a better adoption attorney?
Well, first I understood because I would leave the house at 6 and get home at 6, work outdoors all day. So I realized I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. So that was learning opportunity number one.
So you
But
mowed
I
the
think-
lawn for 12 hours?
No, worked in the groves.
Worked in the groves, yeah.
I did the
For
lawn on
12
weekends. Yeah. Well, it took me an hour to get to work. So from 7 to 5, we did this in Lake County, not too far from here. So it was about an hour drive, and then we worked from 7 to 5, and then come home. And did that
So
for
it's still like
5
6
summers,
hours.
I think,
Yeah.
5 or 6 summers.
Nice. So who helped motivate or inspire you the most in following your dreams?
In terms of adoption, our adoption attorney, my wife and I adopted through a gentleman named Richard Copeland, who was an attorney and taught business at Stetson University. And he did our adoptions, and he was a big factor in leading me this way to practice adoption. And in
Nice.
fact, when he had an adoption practice, and when he decided to step back from that, he generously asked if I would be willing to pick that up, and I was more than willing to do it.
Nice. So what advice would you give my listeners if they wanted to grow up and be an adoption attorney?
First of all, I would encourage them to do that, and I would read, and that's why I love your book segment, because you're encouraging people to read. So for your
Because I'm
listeners,
also helping out the government by getting them to pay taxes.
well, yes, that's a side benefit. But in terms of preparation, I would encourage your readers to read. That's why this is so important, because
Read
it
this
gives
book.
you a discipline. In law school, there's a lot of reading. Law school is also, you are taught how to think like a lawyer and how to advocate positions, but you do that primarily through reading. So the best advice I could give you is, if your listeners would set aside an hour a day
Just to read.
just to read. I don't care what you read.
Just to
You can
read.
read comic books, you can read books like this, you
you
can
can read picture books.
picture books.
Like 10
well,
million.
you want to read, but if you got in the discipline of reading, that's a gift that will serve you the rest of your life.
If you do it at least for 30 days in a row, you then get a habit. So if you have the habit of doing it, I want to keep on doing it. It's fun.
That's good advice, though. You
yeah.
want to make it up because it's a discipline, and if you can be disciplined, it will serve you the rest of your life.
Nice.
And by the way, when you go to college, if you have been someone who has consistently read, you'll be way ahead. If
Oh,
you
wow.
have disciplined yourself to set aside the time every
See, I
day,
read 30 minutes.
then you're well on your way, because you'll be way ahead of the people you go to school with in
Sweet.
college.
So what was the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
Well, the biggest mistake I ever made as a lawyer was not an adoption-related, mercifully, was not an adoption-related issue. It was it involved a foreclosure that got bid too high, and I just wasn't paying attention. I was a very young lawyer. I was a new lawyer, and the good news is I was able to work the problem, and I was able to work it out.
Smart man.
There was some high anxiety there for
That
at least a
makes
couple
sense.
hours. I will tell you that.
Okay, so not a couple days.
But it got worked out. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
Well, I like the outdoors. I love the water. So water's kind of my happy place. So I grew up
Are you a Pisces?
skiing. No, I'm a Leo. I grew up water skiing, so I like
Nice.
water skiing. I like being outdoors. I like being in the woods. I like fishing.
I like playing video
hunting.
games, so I'm not
Okay,
really an
well,
outdoor person.
There is a big generation of that.
Hey. Well, is there anything you think that my listeners should know about you?
I love what I do.
That's
I'm, like I said, born and raised here in Orlando, Florida, and I find a lot of fulfillment, and I look back with a lot of pride on my work in adoption. To be invited to do it, to be invited to participate in somebody's plan or God's plan for some family is very, very, very rewarding.
Okay. Well, do you have a Facebook or a website for my listeners who want to follow you?
Well, we have our law firm, kramerprice.com, and
Facebook?
I have 2 law partners. I think we used to have one, but honestly, that's a
Outdated.
goal for 2022. Well, I'm outdated, so the fact that I have a website that's outdated should not surprise anyone in
Well,
terms
get
of
my
Facebook.
dad
But
on the line.
we're looking. Well, that's
Smart.
gosh, he even interviews well and sells at the same time. I'm in awe. Way to go! Well done.
Good
Tiberius.
management. also buy one of our
No
beer
wonder you
mugs.
carry Caesar's name. Well done.
So what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
How long does it take?
How long does it take?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. Generally, adoptions, if they are what we call uncontested, meaning everybody's in agreement, it usually can take anywhere from 90 to about 150 days.
Oh, gosh.
From beginning to end. If there's contested, then it can take
I
longer.
feel like that's kind of how long divorcing takes, right?
Well, a divorce can take a long time. Again,
Yeah.
depending on whether the parties are going to fight about it or whether they're going to agree to everything. So I've seen adoptions that have taken longer. The other question that a lot of people ask is, how long do I have to wait before I'm matched? And I tell people to plan at least for a year, but not to do it unless you're ready to have a child immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Because in most instances, the biological mother selects the family. And so, biological mother could select somebody early and they don't have to wait for a year. But I tell people just they should plan on that and hope and pray that it goes earlier.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Steve, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
I certainly can, and thanks for having me. This has been awesome.
You're
I've really
welcome.
enjoyed this.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius!
sent you.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
Well, thank you, Steve, for helping me with Math Corners. Today, we're going to talk about variables.
Variables. Well, that's where you're introducing letters into math
As
questions.
numbers.
Yes. That was a difficult
Like
time of life for
A
me.
equals 7.
I'm glad it's your favorite. It's not mine. Just saying.
So, I have been doing my AXL.com math exercises, and we got into a number of problems that have to do with variables. Now, first off, a variable is a letter that represents a missing number.
Can't we just let letters stay in the alphabet and
No.
numbers stay? Okay.
So, sometimes it can be at the end of an equation, or other times it can be in the middle.
Yes. Again, I go back to my first question, but I understand that argument was settled a long
This
time
is
ago.
algebra, people. So, now let's say you have 12 minus A equals 7. Now you have to solve for A. So, if you subtract 7 from 12, you can find out what A equals.
Yes, you can.
What is it?
5.
That is correct. So, now sometimes there are two variables in the problem. Now, this is where it gets cool.
You're not going to ask me more math questions, are you?
So the answer of one variable can affect the answer of another. So if you take the problem y equals 2x minus 3, you can now solve for y by putting different values in x. So if you make x equal 2, then y equals 2 times 2, which is 4, and then minus the 3, you get 1. Make sense?
It makes sense, yes.
So then you can plot what it is on a graph. So now you know where x is 2 and y is 1. So now you can solve one more time for y where x is a different number. So
Can I
let's
just
make...
say graphs are fun?
Oh, very fun.
Graphs are fun.
Oh, yeah, very
That's
fun.
more than a legal opinion. It's just an opinion.
Oh, yeah. So let's say, let's see here. X equals 3. So then you take 3 times 2, then you get 6, then minus 3, you get 3. They're the same thing. Wow. So now on the graph, you put a point where x is 3 and y is 3. Here comes the cool part. You can draw a line that crosses both points and it will mark all the answers of the possible solutions for both x and y.
Look at you describing that visually. I like that.
I am smart. So Steve, do you now know all about how to work with variables?
I may not know everything, but I've enjoyed this, and maybe I'm a little more comfortable with mixing letters and numbers.
That makes sense. So my teacher says that I would use math every single day. Do you have to use math as an adoption attorney?
Actually, you do. You do.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not. So a lot of times it deals with money, and so it's a matter of calculating, and because ultimately
That's
all
why I need a
expenses-
calculator.
Oh, yeah, I believe in calculators, but that's why ultimately you have to report all of the money that was spent to the court, and the court has to approve it.
Oh yeah, instead of like doing a huge math problem, it's like,
Yeah, don't have to use math problems. A lot of addition, subtraction.
oh yeah.
Fortunately for me.
Well, some people have to do it.
Well, some people they can have it.
Division. So thank you so much, Steve, for your help with Math Corners.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I would never have thought Steve could contribute to Math Corners, and he's thrilled to have done so,
Wow.
even though it's a small contribution.
You know what it's time for. It's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the Heart of a Lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. This week, we're going to talk about integrity. For me, I think integrity is doing what is right even when no one else is looking. Well, the qualities of integrity is honesty, sincerity, truthfulness, and fairness.
Integrity is everything. Integrity is really the hallmark of our society. It's how a society can function. And I like your definition. Doing when nobody's looking. Doing something, doing the right thing because it's the right thing. Even if nobody's watching.
I saw integrity at the dollar store. I was at the dollar store with my dad looking for some Christmas hats for a promotion for a new radio station called Visualific Radio. That's going to air my show in London. When we were looking around, I picked up a piece of metal from the floor and played with it all throughout the store. Found a few Christmas antlers and a hat with lights. When we went to check out, my dad told me to give the lady the piece of metal. She was very happy because it was part of the racking system that was used to display items. This piece was used to hold up items safely. I'm so glad that I did not take that piece out of the store. It would have been bad if something dropped on someone because that piece was not in place. So Steve, did you see or use integrity at all this week?
I try to, every day. I think it is part of having good character. I think it is something we should instill in children and demand out of adults. And so I think integrity, the loss of integrity, if you lose integrity,
You lose.
well,
A lot.
way before your time, a TV character who was renowned on a show said it this way: once you get past integrity, the rest is easy.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning, if you can compromise integrity of someone, you have them available to do whatever you want. And so, integrity requires strength. It requires commitment. It requires faith. So I love integrity. I think it's, as I look at yours, those wonderful, the lion.
Yeah.
I think integrity.
Well, of all of those virtues, which is your favorite?
Integrity could be my favorite. Absolutely.
Understood. So we should always try and be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we, Steve?
I absolutely believe that, and I love that you have the lion.
MidState Fire has been providing top quality fire equipment services for 3 generations to the Central Florida area. Don't wait for an emergency to repair. Call MidState Fire today at 407-246-8855. Get your fire extinguishers and emergency lighting for both your home and businesses by visiting www.midstatefire.com. That number again is 407-246-8855.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Steve Price for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking with you today. It was so awesome to learn about adoption and how it works.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I have loved being here, and I have really, really enjoyed this. And, if your listeners ever have any questions, you can find my law firm on the internet, Kramer Price, CramerPrice.com, and be happy to answer questions about adoption because it's near and dear to my heart.
The website again is KramerPrice.com. Also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and subscribe. Also, be sure to listen to us next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy!
The Tiberius Show is not filmed in front of a live studio audience. Executive producer Joseph Boy. Production editor Pierre Laguerre. Green Room manager Danny Boy. And your program host, Tiberius Boy. The Tiberius Show is copyright 2018.